Hello and welcome to the very first tier list video of this series. Today we're going to be doing an Invincible tier list since season 4 just came to an end and it was pretty good. In this season we get to see Mark's most harrowing season with threats such as Thragg, Conquest, Viltrumite War. But we're going to be reaching into past seasons to tier list them too, and this tier list is gonna be based off merely like my enjoyment of the show, not really based off aura or based off of strength. First off, we're gonna start with Omni-Man. Omni-Man is a very interesting character because this season he goes through his redemption arc. In his redemption arc after season 1 of the show, beating Mark going off to space, he goes on his apology tour and like goes to every planet that he harmed in a way to get tools to fight for the Viltrum Empire. One thing about Invincible is that we find out there's a lot of things on Earth that can harm Viltrumites, and because of that power scaling inconsistency, that plot where we have to go and gather every bit of stuff to fight the Viltrumite Empire kind of doesn't make sense to me, because there's like all this ton of stuff on Earth where we can harm the Viltrumites because they harm Mark. Overall, for Nolan's character, I don't like how he instantly demands for his redemption. His redemption should take the time of the entire season, and it should come like near the end of his life, because for the majority of the time he spent his life as a Viltrumite, and spending your entire life as a Viltrumite and a short period of time of like 20 years as a normal human being doesn't make up for all of that time and all of that damage he's done. And I do feel like the fan base does forgive them too easily, and I made one of my TikTok videos about that. Go ahead and check it out in the description, talking about like my full feelings on Nolan. But overall, I like the direction that his character is going at, and I hope in the next season we see more of him getting chewed out for his mistakes, and more of him having to learn that people aren't gonna forgive him instantly, so he goes into A tier. Next up is Debbie. Debbie goes into S tier for me. Debbie is the emotional core of the show. Without Debbie, we get all the evil Invincible variants that go on a rampage. We get Mark joining the Viltrumite Empire. We don't get to see this good character moment between Nolan and Debbie of him like not instantly being forgived. We see a lot of the care, passion, and heart of the show reflected with Debbie. I like the part in season 1 where she proves that like strength isn't the only thing that makes somebody powerful, and like kind of shows it to Mark that even though he's like has this superpower, he still needs to respect Debbie as the mother figure in his life. And at the end of season 4, Debbie folding for Nolan just a little bit. I'm really excited to see what the show decides to do, because I know in the comics Debbie does fully forgive Nolan and fully like gets together with Nolan, but I'm kind of hoping in the show they do something else with that. So overall, Debbie goes into S tier. Next up, we have the main character of the show itself, Mark. Mark, throughout seasons 1 through 4, went through a very like wide variety of changes and like character moments. Throughout season 4, I do like the development in his no-kill rule and his philosophy. I still do think he's a bit like really annoying compared to the other people like in the show, and compared where he should be as a hero. He tends to take out like a lot of his issues onto like other people and like onto other members of his family, and I do think throughout season 4 he puts a lot of pressure on Oliver to perform well and do very well. But his character development through the Conquest encounters have been the best. He learned like the no-kill rule may not apply to him. He learned that not apply to every person, sorry. And the end of the Conquest fight was the most mind-blowing thing that ever happened in Invincible. But overall, as a hero, I feel like Mark should be spending more of his free time training and getting that therapeutic help that he needs. I like that at the end of season 4, he does ask for Cecil's help in therapy, even though like I saw a bunch of memes afterwards of him being really mad at Cecil for letting Conquest live and letting Conquest go into space. He was so traumatized from the Thragg fight, he didn't even remember to bring it up to Cecil. But overall, I have to put him in like low S tier for that. Next up is Adam Eve. Adam Eve this season, and during season 1 she was like her entire character arc with Rex, and then like her entire character arc floating and like trying to get away from his parents were very interesting. But I felt like this season she really stagnated that much with her character development, that she only became like very much like a pseudo therapist for Mark. And with the whole like ending bit, I wish she would have her own like grounded character with her own like issues, with her own like dreams, with her own actual character, rather than just being attached to Mark. And I think that goes for almost every female character in Invincible. Like all they really talk about is like the male characters without like having much ambitions of their own. And I hope like that's something we do see in the later seasons of her like having her own like internal world. Because after the Conquest fight where she took like the biggest damage, the like hole through the chest, we don't see the aftermath too much of like the trauma she experiences. Well, after like the Thragg fight, we do see the aftermath of what Mark experienced, and I just hope that we do get that with Adam Eve eventually in the future, or we should have gone that with Adam Eve in this season. Overall, I have to put her in like mid A tier. Next up is Thragg. I made an analysis on like TikTok about Thragg, and I'm gonna repeat some of it right here. For understanding the character of Thragg, we first must understand what is set up with the Viltrumite culture and how like the average Viltrumite would think. The Viltrumites, as strong as they are against other species, are very vulnerable, physically vulnerable to each other. This physical vulnerability to each other and like the requirement that each and every one of them has to have the strength to dominate one another causes them to have emotional distance that detaches them from other Viltrumites, and by that vector also detaches them from Viltrumite culture. Thragg, on the other hand, is fully invulnerable to other Viltrumites because of his strength, putting him in a different level above other Viltrumites. This is why we can see him get very emotional about the Viltrumite cause without being reprimanded by like the entirety of Viltrumite society, because he's just that strong that he can be that emotional, and he's in the position of Grand Regent, which allows him to like connect to other Viltrumites the way other Viltrumites cannot connect to Viltrumite culture. And this is most exemplified by the blowing up of the Viltrumite planet. If we saw that, Thragg was the only Viltrumite that cried for planet Viltrum being blown up, while the other Viltrumites just stood around, looked at the planet, and was like, because they didn't know how to process their own emotions, because they're so emotionally disconnected from themselves and others. So this gives us a clue to how other Viltrumites view Viltrumite culture. Every Viltrumite, when they talk about like serving the Viltrum Empire and going through Viltrumite cause, describe it as more of a duty than a choice. They describe that choice within the framework of a duty, while Thragg, in the other hand, describes it as his identity. He describes it as his identity because he sits on top of the hierarchy, and he's the most socially accepted Viltrumite, which ironically enough is the exact opposite thing that happened with the character of Satoru Gojo. Satoru Gojo was so strong that he couldn't relate to Jujutsu Society. Jujutsu Society had a hierarchy which didn't allow him to raise to the absolute like top of controlling like the old hierarchy of Jujutsu society, and they saw him as a threat. Therefore, he became isolated. On the other hand, Thragg became insulated within Viltrumite culture because he was just that strong. That showing how the title of the strongest can do different things for different characters. And that's why Thragg's like how a lot of people were making fun of his voice, always like being no for Argyl's skull, didn't strike me, because he does have this emotional side because of all the reasons listed earlier. And him being reasonable to Mark at the very end didn't strike me too, because he has the most amount of humanity out of every other Viltrumite. And if we were to see in season 5 him a change from the comics and him go to Earth wouldn't affect him that much, because he already has that form of humanity intact from his privileged position of Grand Regent and the strongest, being the exact like opposite reflection of who Satoru Gojo is, which this is why I have to put him into S tier. Next up we have Conquest. Conquest to me is one of the most interesting Viltrumites, because unlike other Viltrumites, he considers explicitly what he does as an atrocity. On top of that, his speech with Mark really added the character depth that wasn't found in the comics. That speech was not there, and in his character speech, stronger than other Viltrumites. It created the perfect example of how Viltrumites value hierarchy a lot more than they value strength, because if they purely valued strength, Conquest would be accepted into Viltrumite society. Because Conquest doesn't conform to Viltrumite standards of how to conquer a planet, what you should do when you conquer a planet, what you should do on mission, he's not accepted. And this isolation, even though he's really good at his job, is what sets him apart from other Viltrumites. This showed that Viltrumite culture is more obsessed with keeping the blood of Argyl alive and keeping the whole like thing of like conquering the stars that Conquest has going on. Because in Viltrumite culture you can't outwardly show emotion, a lot of people, including me, theorize that Conquest is using combat as a way to connect to one another, shown by the way he confesses everything with Mark right before he dies. Right before he gets knocked out, Cecil gets him and he escapes back into space. And more than any villain, Conquest pushed the Mark to the point of actually considering like death for a villain, and pushed Mark to the point at the end of season 4 killing him and giving him the most brutal scene in all of Invincible. I have to put him in S tier. Next up is Cecil. Cecil, the character arc where he sacrifices himself for that one mission, and we get his back form of him constantly reforming villains into good people, was really good. The way and the dynamic against Mark in that one fight, in like the fight that they have between him having that eardrum in Mark's ear and Mark really not wanting the eardrum in his ear, was really good. And the decision to make him morally ambiguous to the point where the half of the Guardians of the Globe is against him was really good, and it added a lot of character depth and a good dynamic. But his decision to store Conquest without any of the earbuds in, without like telling Mark 2, and the fact that he escaped in day 1 was a pretty dumb idea. And good thing for Cecil that Mark was so traumatized by Thragg that the moment where he came back to Earth, he didn't ask at all about what happened with Conquest and what was that about. Overall, Cecil does pretty good at his job. He's an interesting character. He's pretty complex. I have to put him in like high A tier. Next up is Paul. Paul is a really interesting character, as his purpose is to get Debbie through Nolan's breakup and Nolan's like attack. Paul emotionally supports Debbie, and he was a really good way to explore Debbie's character and really have the impact be felt of what Nolan did. Outside of Debbie, I really do like the style that Paul has. Every single outfit that he has is pretty good in the show. The one thing that I would like with Paul is, I don't know, like having more internal, like more of an internal world. He's not really connected to the superhero world, and it seemed like the way their relationship cut off in the later episodes was pretty bad, that it got off screened. I hope in season 5 we go back to that entire talk, because I really want to see how that relationship ended off, and I really wanted to see that conversation, and it was pretty sad how it was off screen. Overall, Paul has to go into like a solid A tier for me. Sorry, I just realized we did not have a B tier, so I just added one. Next up, we have Oliver. Oliver is a pretty interesting character, as he has like a super like perfect memory. He's half Thraxan and half Viltrumite, because Nolan went to Earth and had a baby. The main character flaw that most people talk about when discussing Oliver is his tendency to rush into battle and like go in without much of a plan. I'm gonna defend this character flaw of Oliver a lot, because the first time he got a really good hit in with Conquest, and then Conquest was too fast, grabbed him, and he was cooked. The second confrontation with Conquest, that one was indefensible. He shouldn't have rushed into him like that. But the third one, where he rushes in with Thragg and everybody tells him not to rush in, the plan was already broken. The first person to rush in was Nolan, and after that Oliver followed, because he was just like following the lead of Nolan. Overall, I like Oliver as a character. He has a lot of heart. He has the potential to do something really well. I know in the comics he doesn't end up doing that much, but I hope in the show he does a lot more. But if the personalities of Oliver and Invincible in the current moment, Mark in the current moment, were to switch place, I do feel like Oliver would have been a better hero right now in the series, in the animated series. But because of his reckless decision making skills and like the fact that he doesn't really think things through, I would have to put him in B tier. Next up is Thaddeus. Thaddeus is a really interesting character because he's known as the betrayer. He betrayed Lord Argos, kicking off the entire conflict of Viltrumites. He created the Scourge virus, which killed billions upon billions of Viltrumites, and somebody calculated it to be in like the quadrillions. At the end of the season, it's revealed that he's willing to kill all of humanity and the remaining Viltrumites that are on the side of good. Omni-Man, Oliver, and Mark. One thing I would love to see is Thaddeus's earlier days, and Thaddeus and Lord Argo, of how they got to the positions that they got. And I hope we get to see that during season 5. Next up, we have Kregg. Kregg is very interesting. I like the one like red eye patch that he has going on. The funniest thing about him, he was the first one to fold when he got on Earth, getting a motorcycle and everything, just like the motorcycle that was playing in the background. I like how punctual he is, how straightforward he is, especially in the one scene with him introducing himself to Mark. His character has like is very enduring to me. He's a decent character. We haven't seen much dialogue with him. He's also the one who delivered the line of the Scourge virus having effect on them. So overall, I have to put him in B tier. Next up is Lucan. That meme of him holding Alan as they watch like the fight or the planet blow up was amazing. I think we see from the comments he does fold, and I hope in season 5 we see how he folds, and each of the Viltrumites interacting with human being and discovering their humanity. The way that Lucan discovers his humanity in the comics is like wanting to keep the feeling safe of his partner by only committing to them, and that gets Thragg really mad, which that's what I like about Lucan. Other than that, we don't really know much so far, so I have to put him in like B tier. Next up is Anissa. I know what happens in the comics. I don't like how most of you are looking forward to it. Her character so far was a very straightforward Viltrumite. In her dialogue with Mark, it shows the kind of cognitive dissonance that some Viltrumites carry around, being like, oh, this is of grand good for your planet. You should just submit because the Viltrumite Empire will do all this good. Even though, like, they're mostly like a very violent and brutal species. And her character is a very good way of showing the brutality of Viltrumite culture and like why it shouldn't be accepted. But I don't like the fandom and the way they look at Anissa, and they're looking forward to like that one scene happening. So overall, F tier. Next up is Tula. Tula shows Mark that he has to fight like a Viltrumite to beat a Viltrumite. Her hair weapon is very interesting. We don't get a lot of dialogue so far, but she's a decent character. Her design's pretty good. She's an older Viltrumite, so we might see her in like previous backstory slash flashbacks. And I have to put her into C tier. Don't really know that much. Next up, we have Alan the Alien. Alan the Alien and Text Jacket's dynamic was pretty entertaining to watch. The way they play video games, they don't really take stuff too seriously. They joke around with Mark and his fight with Nolan in the beginning that we didn't get to see. I hope we do get to see that. His progress with like getting to Viltrumite level was pretty good, but the way he performed in like the middle of the Viltrumite war, trying to protect Tech Jacket for the majority of it, I didn't like too much until at the end they found their role and they worked together as like Tech Jacket used the little needle to hurt the Viltrumites and Alan the Alien used his strength to end them off, and I like that dynamic really much. The way that it's looking up, I don't think he's gonna use the Scourge virus, and I don't really remember from the comics if he's the one to try to do it, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna adapt that to the show that he does try to use the Scourge virus. So overall, I have to put Alan in high B tier. I really like his character, really funny, but I don't know. I need a little bit much from him. A little bit more from him. Sorry. Alan's partner, I forgot her name. It's not coming to me right now. But the way she took over the other guy's ship was very funny. And the way she kind of leads the ship and leads like the mission so far was really good. We don't get much from her, and we don't get like her own independent storyline too much. She plays a role in the Viltrumite war, but not a decent enough or substantial enough role, so I have to put her into C tier. Next up, we have Space Racer. Space Racer is very interesting. His gun is pretty interesting. Much from Space Racer as a dialogue. He instantly forgives Nolan because he dealt with Viltrumites before, and throughout the Viltrumite war, he was the most crucial part in getting rid of the planet. So I have to put him in a solid A tier. Next up, we have Tech Jacket. In the show, she's gender swapped, which was pretty good because it adds a dynamic with Oliver that wasn't present in the comics. She found her footing a lot later in the war. In the beginning, she was like getting beaten up a lot and was slowing down, but her and Alan teaming up together and their character development like throughout the season was pretty fun to watch while they were like stuck in the Viltrumite ship. I would put her in a solid like mid B tier. She's really good with Alan and they work together pretty well. Next up is Angstrom Levy. Angstrom Levy was a pretty good antagonist and he'll come back a bit later. His reason for trying to kill Invincible, I don't really like that much because he's like attacking the only good Mark while teaming up with other Marks to be like to attack the only good one, which doesn't really make sense if he wants like revenge on Mark. But he got us to the end of season 2 with one of the best moments referencing season 1 and how Mark is becoming like his dad and like slowly using his humanity trying to fight like villains, which I really like. Overall, very solid character. have to put him in like low B tier. Next up is Amber. Personally, I think Amber is overhated. Her main issue was the communication problems in the relationship with Mark in season 1. Him not telling her he's invincible, and that eventually does put them in danger with the whole Anissa thing. But her wanting clear communication from Mark because of that, like seriously, like also like the space lock lie and like the lies continue to pile up was completely valid. But I do feel like they could have handled it a little bit better. But I think that she was in the right in that scenario, wanting for that communication. So overall, I have to put her in like mid B tier. Next up, I forgot this character's name, but it's Nolan's tailor. He makes the tailor for Invincible. He makes the tailor for Omni-Man. He makes the suits for both of them. He has this character moment in season 4 of Invincible. Season 4 or 5, can't really remember. Season 4 of Invincible with Nolan, where he says he like serves heroes, and because of everything Nolan did during season 1, which was a very good way of showing realistically how the rest of the city would react, because a lot of people are like trying to get the characters, a lot of people are expecting all the Earthlings to instantly forgive Nolan, even though he did like a very bad atrocity when he came to Earth. So him not forgiving Nolan instantly is a good way to put perspective on what Nolan did and how serious what Nolan did was to the rest of the people on Earth. So overall, I have to put him in like a low B tier. Very useful for a plot, but very minor role. Next up is Adam Eve's parents. First, with the dad, he's obviously the worst. He's toned down a lot from the comics. He says some weird stuff to Mark, but like in the show, he mostly says something to like guilt trip Mark, which is a lot different than like what he said in the comics. He's overall like refusing help from Adam Eve because he feels like the superpowers that Adam Eve has makes him feel inferior. So, and he's like the least likable character. So overall F tier. And for Adam Eve's mom, D tier because she enables him a lot. Next up is Doc Seismic. Throughout the seasons, he gained a lot of power to eventually like being able to take out of all of Earth's defenses and all of Earth's heroes. With him, I have to put him in like C tier. He was like the least likable. He not the least likable. I just didn't like him as a villain that much. There wasn't anything too notable about him. His motivations aren't really like notable, and the power scaling that the Mark had to like go through, all of a sudden like bugs can pierce his skin, I didn't really like. So overall, just like D tier. I don't even remember this dude. If he's really important, I don't want to say anything too bad, so I'm just gonna put him in C tier. Let's get a big chunk out of the way and cover all of the Mark variants. The only Mark variant that really stands out to me is the one that misses Debbie, because it shows the importance of Debbie in the multiverse of things. And it shows why our Mark is really good, because that Mark still has their Debbie to keep them in line. But the rest of the Invincible variants can all go into like C tier. They're not really rememberable. Other than Sinister Mark, I think he shows up in the comics, but so far in the show, they're all going into C tier. Next up, the Sequids. The Sequids were pretty interesting for a good portion. The fights were pretty good. The part of season 4 that I liked about the Sequids is where it confronts Mark's willingness to kill, and where Mark actually steps over the line, making it a bit higher than most of the other villains, so I have to put it in like low B tier. Next up, all the kaiju and monsters, including the dwellers. We don't know much about the dwellers, including the Ragnars too. We don't know much about the dwellers. The Ragnars go to B tier since they actually do something against the Viltrumites, but the rest of the monster, including the dragon, since it's not developed that much in the show, all go into low C tier. Next up, since it's on the list, we'll talk about Spawn. Spawn in itself is a very interesting character, and I would like to make a completely independent video about Spawn, but all I know is that he shows up in an issue, a crossover issue, and he shows up in the comics but not in the show because of some type of licensing. But for now, I'll put him in the get out tier since like this isn't really about him. Also, I forgot to add the Rhino onto the monsters. He goes into C tier too. Next up, we have the entirety of the old Guardian of the Globes, including Damien, this time the Demon Detective. I'm gonna put them all into C tier because they're kind of all slaughter. And I'm gonna put Immortal in C tier too because I don't like him that much. So, yeah. Next up are the Thraxons. Not the Thraxons. The species that comes to evade Earth like 3 times and Rudy ends up stuck in the other dimension. I like them, so I'm gonna put them in like mid C tier. Really, there's not much. I know there's much in the comics, but I didn't read that far. I don't know what character this one's supposed to be, but it's the round dude with a lot of hair. I'm gonna put him in Get Out. I don't really know who he's supposed to be. Maybe I'm not gonna say it. Next up is Black's. I forgot his name, but I remember he was part of the 7. He got his arms broken, and there wasn't much character development on him, so I have to put him in like mid C tier too. Next up is Darkwing. I think he traps Mark in that dark dimension. Mark threatens him with like not letting him go because there's creatures in that dimension. His powers are pretty interesting, and I enjoyed seeing him in like the show, and he's part of the reason why like Mark has this moral quandary about not forgiving villains for killing people, and Cecil tries to recruit him like a bit later in the story. So I'm gonna put him in like high C tier because he has like good amount of relevancy in the story. I don't remember these 3 characters, Iguana Lady and dude with like the green on and the speedster looking guys, so I'm just gonna put them into C tier. Next up is Battle Beast. Battle Beast has a very good fight with Thragg in the comics. He's very bloodthirsty throughout the show. He shows up in like season 1 where nobody expects him, and he's like the final boss showing up out of nowhere. I like the bloodlust that he has during the Viltrumite world. His character is pretty cool, but there's not a lot of complexity. He's very straightforward. He wants to fight. He needs to fight. He dies for the fight. I'm gonna put him in high B tier. I really enjoy his character. Next up is Donald. He has a really good character moments during season 1. He gives really good speeches about humanity, purpose, and the drive to move forward. During the whole Sinclair arc, he was absolutely amazing. He puts his life down on the line to save people multiple times. He's a really goated character. I'm gonna have to put him in A tier. Next up is Rex. Rex goes through a bit of a redemption arc. He becomes more kinder as a person. He starts off as like a very much bad person. He gets what's coming to him. He has this like brain altering moment, and then he becomes a much better person, and then they kill them off, which is very unfortunate. I wish he was around more. Overall, I like the character, A tier. Next up is Powerplex. He is a victim of Nolan from the first episode. He goes around and blames Mark for that death, and he has his mini arc where he accidentally like murks his family, and then he goes like kind of crazy. He steals stuff from the like organization, the government, and then uses his powers to fight Mark and stuff. He was a pretty interesting character. I liked the episode he was at, but he didn't make much of an impact on me, or like I didn't feel he was that compelling as a character, so B tier. Next up is Shrinking Ray. She had that one brutal scene against like the giant dude. One of pretty solid character arc, is attached to Rex near the end and was gonna live a future family, and then I think, did she die? I think she died, but pretty solid character, low B tier. Next up is Shapesmith. I think that's his name. Alien that sneaked onto Earth, was the reason for the whole parasites getting onto Earth, and decent character, pretty annoying. I'm not sure if we get much of him, but I don't remember much of him, so he's going into C tier. Next up is Bulletproof. He has some pretty good lines throughout the series. He does act as like a way weaker Mark. He is kind of fast, but I know something does happen with him in the comics as he tries to take Mark's role while Mark is missing, and I appreciate it for that, but he didn't make much of an impact for me. So high C tier. William was pretty good. He introduced us to like the normal perspective of people in the whole superhero stuff. They changed voice actor, which many people didn't like, and I'm kind of like getting used to it. He's a good friend to Mark. He puts things in perspective a lot, and overall pretty solid character, like low B tier. Next up is the Mahler Twins. The Mahler Twins are pretty funny. They show how brutal Oliver could be, and I like their dynamic. They were one of the best like side villains out there, and the way they bantered was pretty good, so I have to put them in like low A tier. Next up is Rudy / Rex. I don't like Rudy / Rex. He steals his the actual Rex's name at his funeral. He's really weird towards Monster Girl. He's a 34-year-old grown man in like a teen group, which is really weird. He has all the red flags of like being a supervillain, and it does turn out he is a supervillain at the end, and I just don't like his vibe as a person. He would be a really weird person to hang out around, so I gotta put him in like D tier. Next up is Monster Girl. Monster Girl and Rudy's dynamic is kind of sweet if you don't consider like what Rudy is. She ages backwards and they try to fix it. In the comics, I've heard like some things that she's not that like good of a character, but so far so good. She's like a solid character. She punched Rex before his like redemption arc, which I really like, so I have to put her in like low B tier. The next character is the talking head, like the talking mask. I don't know his name. He's pretty funny. I like his lines. He goes in like top of C tier, but because he's not like the main part so far in the show, so high C tier. And the rest of the characters right here, except for Sinclair, he goes into D tier. I don't feel like has that much importance to like the show, and aren't that compelling of characters to me. If like some of you like them, sorry, but they all go at the bottom of C tier for me, except for Titan. Titan plays Invincible like a fiddle and teaches him like a really good lesson of not trusting strangers, so he gets like top of C tier too. That's the end of the video. Please like and subscribe, hit the bell icon for more, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.